Cosmic here, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be taking another look at the Japanese format meta for Fusion World and the online event that just happened this past weekend. So if you caught my most recent video, one of the few positive things I talked about was the digital client being amazing for hosting kind of these online weeklies, right? And I gotta give a shout out to Pro Play Games for those that follow the NA scene. There is some work happening there, and again, is it capped at 50 players because of what can be hosted in the digital client itself, but I'm still super excited for this. Now, the other thing I will mention is that yes, there was also another series of Ultimate events that happened this past weekend. So if you caught my last video talking about the Japanese format, these are lists that went 5-0, got a serialized Goku, and are kind of the holdover events until we see bigger regionals that unfortunately we don't have in the rest of the world, but are still cool to look at. That said, I spent about 2 hours digging into Twitter last night, looking at my old shop list, looking up the hashtags, looking up Ultimate Battle, and I found about 3 lists, and that was it. So I really couldn't do much with that from an information standpoint, but I did find this 32 player, which ended up being 38 actually, online tournament that I want to at least cover at a high level. So what you're seeing here is the Big Bang Cup, as they called it, and the leader breakdown overall. And then on the right-hand side here, I just have a little recap in case you missed my last video. And yes, this is just a isolated tournament result, so take that with a grain of salt, but just a recap of what the overall leader distribution was looking like. So, of course, we do still see green kind of being up there and being represented, but I think one of the interesting things to note here is that, yes, Broly kind of wasn't there, right? Like, we do see him here this little bit, but overall, a lot of people did end up playing Gohan. So I am really excited to see kind of what this might mean for, hey, is Ginyu going to come back, right, in the near future? But of course, because we are talking about an online event, I do need to add a small disclaimer. Now, normally in at least the North American region, and other regions might be better, we of course have a very real issue with a product shortage, people waiting to get codes, and things of that nature. However, from a quick look at least, or you might have noticed a lot of people importing Japanese codes, hint, hint, there's a lot of digital goods going around in the Japan market, and there is always codes available to buy for really cheap. I think they're like 15 cents last I looked. I don't need any code cards, so definitely let me know in the comments if that price is a little outdated, but they're dirt cheap by comparison, and everybody can get them. So I want to be very clear up front. I don't think any of these lists are missing anything. It's not an availability issue or anything like that. I do believe that these are players who came to this tournament and were able to build whatever they wanted. But yes, you will see, as I mentioned in my digital client review video, that some of them are like, oh, I opened up 3 regular SRs and one of the alt arts, and well, I guess that's fine. So without further ado, let's get into the top 4 that was reported out, as well as these are going to be ranked in order from how they finished in the tournament. So with that out of the way, we do have a red win. Yes, that is Beerus taking down the entire event, right? So we see Goku 7 or U7, again, whatever the community name is going to end up be on this one. But Universe 7 Goku did take a little bit of a backseat this week, and it is taken by Beerus as our red leader of choice. And as someone who's been playing more locally, again, we have all our celebration events. I'm going to my last celebration event this Wednesday, so 2 days from now at the time of recording this, and I am very excited to play more Goku Black. However, with the more time and with Star Wars all the way and some other stuff, I am going to be doing more on the digital client side, so hopefully some versus videos and all that coming soon. But that's a long-winded way to say that I've been mostly focused on Goku Black, but I will be exploring some of these other leaders very, very soon. And for red, for me personally, I've really come around to Beerus. On that flip side, having that extra minus 10k power just lines up so well for what you want to be doing in red, and that is a very serious effect from what I've been noticing. So definitely keep that in mind in terms of as you're testing out various red leaders, kind of where we want to shift. Now, talking about the list overall right now, nothing that's too exciting. We do see the Frost, which is of course going to be your anti-yellow, make sure you don't die to it. Playing 4 is definitely a choice. They maybe expected a lot of yellow online because of kind of where they were testing, what have you. But then other than that, we have our typical Self-Awakeners. We have the 4 of Hit, the other one just, over here on the side. Very solid card for just, man, I got this played against me where they went second, dropped out this on me and killed my 1-turn play, and got the card from life. Like, whew, this hit can be really spicy. And then other than that, right, we do see things like the 30k vanillas, which I think a lot of decks have been picking up more recently, just in terms of having something that can swing into Broly and at least check something from their hand. And then, of course, just being a 10k card. Again, this is set 1. We are getting to see a limited card pool and what that means for deck flexibility and building. But overall, I think this is largely a lot of what people have seen, other than the event here. I have not seen a lot of red events red events getting used in lists. I don't know why I got to specify color when it's color locked, right? But a lot of the red lists that I've been seeing have been eventless, or just, all battle, no events, go time. But this one allowing to be able to search up a card or a BP boost can be really interesting and giving that flex spots. But, depending on what you're going against, I think there's still, I think it's called time skip. I'm totally blanking on the card now. Depending on where the meta is landing and some of those other flex options that red has, this is one of those times where it would have been really cool to see a best of 3 for this game with a limited sideboard, just because of how some of these events line up very well to be positioned as a, use this only in this matchup sort of thing. So it would have been nice to see that dynamic play out a little bit more. But of course, with some of the limited use cases in those other events, you just energy them and you kind of go on about your day, right? That's just how it is. So in terms of spicy stuff that we're seeing, the event is definitely one that's up for conversation. Being that deep into Frost is definitely a, hey, some are running 2 I've seen, or just 0 in some cases, which I think is very bold. I think you definitely want at least 2 just to have it as an emergency thing, but still cool to see all the same, and something that I would expect to see and continued on in future lists. And then other than that, like your SRs and all that stuff, it's a pretty standard red list at this point. And then again, I do include their Twitter names if you want to go look them up, follow them. I don't think any of these did a write-up from what I remember, or they have 5 followers on Twitter sort of thing. So take that with a grain of salt. But the reason why I'm covering the Japanese format or Japanese players in general is because I'm someone who believes that they should at least have a page or announcement in the global scene, and someone to have this larger conversation happening, so that we know what everyone is playing. Because in future metas, as the card pool gets deeper, it is going to be really, really cool to see how the different regions play with the same card pool. So definitely keep that in mind, more of a set 2, set 3 thing. But at least from, again, the other, and I mentioned this in my previous videos, and just small anecdote here, because I follow so many Japanese trading card shops or players already, I feel like it's just an easy part where I can shine some light on this community. Moving on from there, we have Cooler, which is interesting, really, because I've seen a lot more Frieza lately than I've seen Cooler. And again, as someone who's not played a lot of yellow yet, I just like Cooler for the restand, hit you for 40k, and have that more aggressive line available, because double attack for 40 early is pretty nasty, it turns out, especially when you're trying to close out the games versus Broly. But I know a lot of people have really been liking Frieza for the restand. So a lot of these lists do have a lot of overlap, right? We still see the 4-cost Frieza, which is going to restand itself off Cooler's ability. We have the Golden Frieza, which is just a great mid-range card for double striking, locking down one of your opponent's card. You play against Golden Frieza once and get your card stuck, and you're like, all right, this feels great, right? And you're still getting hit into with a 35k, which is very, very real. Now, again, it is 4 or less, so be very mindful of that. I had to correct a few people at locals on this one, so you can't restand 5 Frieza, but 4 Frieza is what you want to be restanding anyways, and hitting for the 40k. Other than that, and I know this isn't that different from a list I've covered previously, but oh my god, vanillas, right? So we do still have the 30k vanilla making a strong point here, as well as the 20k, 25k vanillas here, for a total of 7. Again, 10k guard is nice because some of the other cards that you want to be playing don't actually have a lot of guard to them, or they're self-awakeners. So you do need some number of 10Ks, but again, I do think this is very much made in mind with respect that Broly is something that has been playing very, very large impact on the format, and this is just a way to say, hey, I got to make sure my guys can still attack and still check a card out of their hand at a minimum, if not multiple, again, with the Frieza. So again, I think overall we're lining ourselves into very, very well that we've now seen, 2 different playable red leaders, 2 different playable yellow leaders, 2 different playable green leaders. Green, I think, still having an edge overall, and then blue itself still does not have a good spot. So for what we've seen both in the North American and Japan, or I should say global versus Japan formats, right? So again, early on, we don't have any events yet, but I do still strongly believe that there is a good blue deck out there. I'll be playing blue in the Canada regional, which I'm very excited to go to. I just finished actually max rating out my SPRs and leader, and I opened the gold marker at my last celebration. Was super hyped to open up the one gold marker I cared about. But I do think something is there for blue, and May is just a busted card. So if not in set 1, set 2, something is definitely going to be popping off. But back to the point, Cooler itself lending very well to those early aggressive strategies that you really want to be leaning into with the 40k Frieza, just to check the Broly, again, more of the mid-range or control deck in the format. And then again, 40k is just very hard to remove at 4, it turns out. Even with Beerus with his minus 10k power, can still be pretty difficult if you get that Frieza out early, as well as your early self-awakeners to make sure you can go into Cooler, untap the Frieza, and really pressure your opponent's hand. And then I gotta give a huge shout out to Eggman Events, because spoiler, even though it wasn't played a lot, Broly did make it to top 4. But the list that was included in the Twitter post, which of course I'll link in the comments below, it was like 10 pixels. So thankfully I'm familiar with the game enough that I could just do it off pictures alone, but it was really bad. So I had to just include it here as kind of a cleaned up version. And not much really to be said here in terms of like the lists overall, right? We see the one drop lineup all the time. We see the Paragus Self-Awakener, the Vegetas to kill something, ramp Son Goku, so you can play your ramp cards and not, or your kill energy card and not feel bad about it. We do see the pop before cost, but one of the interesting things I did say that I want to clear about, and yes, that's 2 different super combos. It threw me for a loop too. There's no life Hans, as people are calling it, or the ones that heal 1. And then also only having 2 of these that pop a 4 cost or lower. I really would have liked to seen a third copy, because it is just so good, and it is a 10k guard as well. So this is like the only real thing that jumped out to me. And then like Broly at 4, I know some people are like, oh, only play 3, only play 4, but otherwise pretty close. And then the event lineup is more or less what we've been seeing. Instant Kamehameha and both Big Bang Attack have been I think were originally underrated, but now people are really coming together on just how strong that they can be. But in general, green is doing green things. Not a lot needs to be said about this list overall. There are some tech choices, of course, you can make within your top end and some of the event lineups that you want to be doing, depending on what you're expecting. But generally speaking, this is going to be, I play the androids and the Brolys and I just win, right? That's how it goes. And then Broly being a 25k at least protects you against some of the early aggression out of the yellow decks, and just the 25k being the extra 5k on top makes block numbers a little bit better as well, which is really nice. So with that in mind, again, this is just a thing we've seen green time and time again. Nothing too much to elaborate on that, but definitely make sure that you're testing against this list or similar lists with Gohan. Like literally just change the leader, right? And you'll get the same effect to a point, but change it to Gohan, make sure you see both sides of it. You know, having a 25k base versus Gohan, who can get the energy loop to get up to 35k, right? Only for 1 attack though. It's very, very good. I think overall people are still leaning towards Gohan, and that's why we saw it at such a higher representation than Broly. But don't be mistaken, Broly is still Broly and is going to win with green being that good. And then the last one was another Beerus deck. So we did see Beerus make up a surprising amount of the meta chart overall from the 38 players. Again, it was 32, but then there was 38 reported. And so again, with this one, we are just seeing more of the, hey, we got the early game removal. We have Beerus being very strong as a fact, being able to hit things, no pun intended, is being very good. The one thing that really stuck out here was just only 4 of the 4-drop SCR, then splitting into the ultimate, or the SCR, excuse me, which is the life burn-like effect. So this one is really interesting, I think, with Beerus, because with the minus 10k power, it's effectively removal, because it effectively goes up to 40k for, right? So it's removal plus still threatening a damage, which I think Beerus really gets to, or lends himself better to this card in particular. I was trying to play it where it's like you get up to that 35k number and it's just like not as nice. So I think the Beerus built in with the 30k attacking, you know, making it effectively a 40k swing, comboing one more on top of it, your opponent has to dump their hand or just take a life. And especially if they're in a spot where they don't want to make themselves lose to like the double strike on the following turn, you know, going the 4-drop into the 5-drop with the Beerus flipped is a very strong play of closing out the game on that next turn, because they then have to guard extremely, extremely defensively with the 35k coming in. So Beerus, I think, is, for again, me being more of a control player, I think I'm coming around to I really like Beerus more. But again, depending on the matchup, it is really just you need to make sure you flip early or not, because those crit leaders do have that disadvantage where, yes, it's nice to have the power increase. Yes, it's nice to deny the card, but at some point you just need the card draw engine going so that you can find those other key pieces of removal that you really want and to dig out of it. And then the other thing that we've started to see in some of these pop up is more of the like Android package where you have Krillin 17 and 18 that are searching for another, that are searching for blockers. But instead they opted here for the Piccolo, which is a 25k attack. Again, more of that just really lending itself well to a lot of people are expecting Broly, I think, but some definitely options here that I would move around and change some numbers. And then we do have the 5-cost Beerus as well at the top end, which I don't believe the other list had, if I remember correctly, but a card that I know we've seen like 0 to 2 ofs in lists. But again, for me personally, I really do like this secret rare in this list because it's been playing out a little bit better than I expected it would, wherein the other version only gets up to 35k, and surprisingly, that 5k makes all the world of difference. It turns out sometimes. So with that, that is just a quick recap of the Big Bang Cup, the online event that was hosted out of Japan. Again, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any of the lists from the Ultimate Cup because I found like 2 lists and not much else to go on. And the couple posts I find didn't have lists. So that's how it is. But at the end of the day, I will try to cover the Japan meta as much as I can in a video like this, just to keep the conversations open. What is the, flex spots looking like? How is the meta changing? Are people suddenly stop playing Gohan for whatever reason, right? Oh no, did Green die overnight? Like things of that nature. Again, I think this will lend itself very well as we get deeper into the card pool and there's definitely more choices to be made. We can only do so much with a set one at the end of the day, but even going back to the start of the video where we did get to see such a leader choice shift, I think that's something that is exciting and worth talking about. So with that, my friends, let me know what your favorite deck was out of the top 4 that we had here, or what is your favorite leader that you are currently playing. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for future Fusion World content for meta reports and hopefully a little digital gameplay coming up in the near future. But with that, otherwise, stay safe, stay hydrated, and see you in the next one. Cheers.